Well, hello guys. It's been a minute, hasn't it? Although not to the extent that people have been asking me, but I noticed that I was gone. Like I was on a productive streak and then I stopped cold turkey because, well, as you can see, I'm back in my room. And of course, the holiday season is here. My friends do a lot of get-togethers, parties, and since I don't really have a big family here, they're kind of my family. And so every year around this time, I basically put everything aside. And so if you were trying to get a hold of me, maybe emailing me or messaging me or asking questions, that's probably why I haven't been super responsive. But hopefully this video would salvage my reputation a little bit. Okay, question number one. 这个是来自阿少 ，shout out to 阿少。我现在就是用 Ella 所说的方式在练口语，看外刊、看视频的字幕，把口语中可能会用到的表达抄写下来，然后每日复习。坚持了1个月，但是感觉口语还是没有什么进步。So this is a comment under my very recent video. You shouldn't think of learning English purely as spoken English. It should just be acquiring input and then how to transfer that input into output. So in terms of input, you're reading articles, you're reading magazines, you're really scouring the subtitles of different videos. But the question is, number one, I don't know what your vocabulary range is. 所以你看的材料我也不知道是不是合适你的。不同的外刊它的这个词汇量范围是不一样的。就讲美国的一些外刊好了 ，Reader's Digest 有点像是国内的那种口水。Honestly, I started with that. Like that's a great magazine for beginners because it's easier. The range of vocabulary is more beginner friendly. And so my number one suggestion is to get a better idea of what you're dealing with, like where you're at in terms of your vocabulary. 而且我不知道你看到这些表达，就是你不认识的表达，会怎么解决这个问题？就是你不懂的单词，你是在什么地方查？就是你对单词的了解的来源也很重要。比如说，你如果用的是很只言片语、言简意赅的这种词典，然后它对每一个抽象的单词也好，或者说具象的单词也好，都是1、2个中文的翻译，或者是1、2个中文字。那你对这个单词的了解可能还是很片面，或者说甚至是不准确的。所以在这种情况下，你哪怕看了很多适合你的语料，单词量范围跟你现在水平的这个单词量范围是吻合的一些语料，你还是错过了很多本来可以好好学会这个单词怎么用的机会。就是 you're missing out on a lot of opportunities. You still actually don't know how to use this word or this phrase. And so you're always going to be kind of uncertain. 在 input 这个步骤对很多生词，对很多表达都是不确定的，然后再来说这个词汇表达可能都是超出你现在这个能力范围，超出范围，然后又不确定，然后导致了 OK 你自己首先理解的时候就肯定有出现问题，就是你被动理解他在说什么时候，可能都要借助一些翻译软件或者借助比如说视频它这个中文翻译。我们输出其实按理来说应该是先从写作，就是先从慢速写作，纸上谈兵，可以做准备，可以写下来一个句子给别人看，然后修改一下，就这种慢速有一个来回反馈的过程的一个输出。你这一步直接就跳过了，直接就想说我要直接说出来，我要直接练口语。所以 obviously all these factors considered, it's gonna attribute to, you basically not making any progress. And so my suggestion to you is, first of all, get a better idea of how many words you actually know. 就是你对词汇的 mastery 和简单的这种翻译知道是两码事的，所以有很多单词你需要扪心自问一下 OK 这些单词我会用吗？包括我之前说的这个3000单词表，我觉得你可以去看一下，因为这个是做过统计的，就是美国人也好，母语者，就是各国的母语者，讲英文的母语者，其实平时就喜欢用那些单词，但是问题是我们在学英语的过程中很少有人知道是哪3000单词 right? Sometimes they'll overlap. 比如说我在初中学的时候，有很多单词是在那个 3000里面的，但是也有很多单词是没有的，或者说你对单词的了解不是很全面，或者说甚至不精确，有很多时候就是中式翻译，或者说完全就是错误的。那这种情况下，你是知道这个单词的中文意思，但是你那些单词不能算是你掌握的单词，所以每个人单词量，包括我自己当时在内，都是会打很多折扣的。所以你适当的要降低这个你看的材料的难度，或者说降低对自己的要求。比如说你可以看一遍稍微难一点的文章，或者说盲听一个美剧，不看中文字幕的看一个美剧，那你就是要降低这个速度，或者说多给自己复习的机会。然后第二步，知道自己水平在哪里，挑选合适的语料之后，一定要找一个权威的英文词典。我之前有做过这个对朗文词典的解释 ，so I won't get too much into it, but a good dictionary makes a world of difference. Like it's no joke, it's so underrated, but I've talked about it before, so I suggest you look into that. Both my video and also the dictionary that I was talking about. Okay, 第二个问题 ，many different people have asked the same question, which is input 要怎么样有效？一定要去背吗？Okay, so input, I've already talked about it before, just in the last question. 但是第二个问题一定要去背吗？ I would say it depends on you. 比如说我当时因为要考雅思托福，所以有这种急着要提高写作的这种刚需，所以我会去背新概念英语3和4的句型。我只是背句型而已，我不是背它具体讲的内容，因为我觉得他的文章写的就 putting British English spelling aside or like some archaic expressions aside, it's mostly good materials. It's a great resource for honestly intermediate to even beginner writings. 如果说你想要提高写作，或者说你想要提高你的口才，我觉得你可以去带着说我可以去借鉴别人的这种表达方式的这种目的去适当的背一下。但是背的目的不是说你今天背完，你明天 absolutely have to remember everything. 背 is a way to slow down the material, to slow down your process, to really appreciate every single word or every single expression and appreciate the writer's intention, so that when you also speak or write, you can capture their spirit or reference their style, because you haven't had time to develop your style. 比如说我现在去积累 input 更能做到就是多看，或者说看到我理解为止。比如说我今天对 psychology 对 philosophy 这个话题有兴趣的话，我会挑一些就是它词汇量范围差不多，或者说它的这个写作风格差不多的作者，然后去积累不同的观点也好，不同的表达也好。Although it's not directly reciting the whole thing, I am slowing down my process in hopes of hopefully also one day talking about psychology, also writing about psychology. 所以你只要带着说 OK 我怎么样把这个 input 变成output 的这个目的不管是从别人的写作到你自己的写作，还是说从别人的对话，从别人的演讲到你自己的对话，到你自己的演讲，你只要有这个注意去 appreciate other people's speaking, appreciate other people's writing skills. You don't have to necessarily remember everything to gradually build your input, to gradually build your vocab, to gradually build your cache of expressions. Does that make sense? 但是我想强调一点，如果你的目的是为了说，比如说很多人他会买那种旅游50句或者旅游500句，然后他会去背那种standard answers or standard questions. 就他们背的目的不是说我要去增加我的词汇量，我要去增加我的表达方式的多样性，他背的目的是为了说 OK 母语者跟我讲话的时候我有东西可以说。It doesn't actually work like that, because you're memorizing a pre-rehearsed set of questions and answers. If you go in to a conversation with too much optimism, with too much confidence, when your vocabulary and your input isn't quite there yet, and you just start reciting all these phrases or all these questions you've memorized, the other person is going to think your English is better than it actually is, and they'll say something that's totally off script. 就他们会突然说一些这个稿子里面没有提前写到，因为你不知道他的单词量范围是什么，对吧？而且你讲的越嗨，你背的东西越多，他也会跟你越嗨的讲，所以 can't be that mechanical, right? You still have to gradually build your vocabulary over time. But certainly reciting something helps. But I would even just say, like, if you find something inspiring, if you find a sentence to be quite hitting your soul, or like you like the way a certain speaker or writer phrases something, you could just copy it. Like, you can write it down. You can just literally note it down. Jot it down. Like when you write something down, it's also slowing your brain down. It's also helping you to appreciate how something is written. So yeah, sky's the limit. You don't have to do one thing only. Capiche? 下一个问题 ，UP 主能不能出一期怎么练发音的视频 ？Honestly, it's been a while since someone asked me about how I practice my pronunciation. I would say my pronunciation practice comes in 3 stages. The first stage is just basically handling consonants and vowels, all the basics. I've always had a good enough command of how each individual word is pronounced. And that comes from just being born in my family. My dad was super anal about my pronunciation from day one. Like before I even learned the alphabet, he was already on my case about how to say 3. And honestly, I have him to attribute to. I have him to thank, because when you're a beginner, you're really at the mercy of whoever is teaching you English, and pronunciation is one of those things where if they say something wrong, it gets stuck with you. Like it gets ingrained in you, and it's much harder to correct bad pronunciation when you've already formed a muscle memory. And so yeah, I would just say, like, when you're struggling in this stage, just be kind to yourself, just be patient with yourself, and don't be so perfectionistic, because honestly, the people that have like a good command of language are either lucky, they started out young, or they really spend a lot of time on it. And then stage 2 is mimicking. I used to go to the karaoke a lot. Like, you think watching TV is what my jam, like singing is my jam. And honestly, when you sing, you're forced to mimic not only just like the liaisons, but also a certain rhythm that American speakers often have. And so yeah, if you've already gone past stage 1 and you're trying to work on your liaison, like connection of speech, try finding a few easy English beginner songs and then just go to the karaoke, or like download one of those apps on your phone and just practice. And then stage 3 is due to me moving here. Honestly, like I could show you my video from way back when. Like I sounded okay, I sounded decent, but you could still catch, I mean, sure, you could still catch a few like slip-ups here and there, but I've gotten so much exposure to American speakers, native speakers, that it's inevitable. It's, you know, plus I still like singing, so that also helps. So yeah, I hope this addresses your question a little bit. Depending on where you're at, just stick to one thing and slow down and work on specific things, work on specific 连读现象 or 辅音. Because a lot of times it's not one sentence is different from the other, and you have to practice so many different materials. It's one little consonant or one little vowel that keeps repeating in different words and in different sentences that you think there are different issues, but it's just one issue that keeps repeating. And so instead of trying to deal with all of them all at once, just focus on one specific thing at a time, and gradually you'll correct all of them, or at least be decent. You know, you don't have to be perfect. Next question. 如果母语能说出很有深度很有思想的句子，但是英语只能说出很浅薄的句子，我突然想到一句有深度和意境的中文想法，你是怎么把这个想法转换成英文的？ It's a very good question, and I think I've addressed it in different videos before, but short answer is I don't translate. Like when I think, 就是我想2个语言的时候，它是平行的，就是我很多中文是不知道它的英文是什么。你如果跟我讲一个句子，我可以通过整个句子来想一下 ，OK， 这个句子要表达的意思是什么，然后 what are some options for that one particular phrase? If you were to just ask me one single word and then translate that Chinese word into English, I have trouble doing that. 比如说深度和思想。尤其是思想这个东西 you can define 思想 as a noun, as like your mind, right? But obviously 他这里说很有深度很有思想，这个思想 it's like it's not a noun, it's an adjective first of all, And it's trying to say like it's thought-provoking, it's deep, it's profound, it's wise even. And so just to give you an example of how translating things word for word, especially from Chinese to English, is problematic, which is why I highly recommend you to, first of all, get an English like monolingual dictionary, or at least in the beginning, know that that's your ultimate goal. 你可以现在还用中英文词典，就是过渡的时候用一下，但是你要知道，你最终目标是要 ditch bilingual dictionary and just stick to monolingual dictionaries. Doesn't matter which one, just you gotta take out the middleman so that when you not only think, but first of all, you gotta understand things in English. So that's step number one. Step number two, 你想要写出或者说出很有思想、很有深度的句子，你必须要先看足够别人写的很有深度、很有思想的句子 ，right? You can't come up with something that you haven't at least observed or seen or understood before. 如果说你的中文母语是这样子，你的英文也是这样子的。If you're reading within a certain range and you suddenly want to be like, say you're right here, but you want to be up here, that's not possible, okay? So I'm running out of storage, but I hope that addresses the most common questions. And if you have any more questions to ask me, just leave them in the comments. So yeah, happy holidays, guys. Bye.